Hello, everyone. How are you doing? It's me, Makeda Valletta, also known as the Body Scientist, live on my YouTube page. I'm about to go live on my IG too as well. So give me a second. I forgot to set it up at the same time. Hold on. Okay. Okay. Hello to everybody out there. I am now live on both YouTube and Instagram. In case you're unfamiliar with me, I'm the Body Scientist, also known as Makeda Valletta. And first, I just wanted to say that I have graduated from my master's program finally. It took 2 years. I finished with a master's of science in medical cannabis science and therapeutics from the University of Maryland School of Pharmacy. So all of my professors were pharmacists, and I got to learn about things from a pharmacist perspective. But my background being in nutrition science and nutritional biochemistry, um, both of them are very heavy on the biochemistry. Medical students, pharmacy students, and nutrition students all have to take a lot of biochemistry. I remember when I was in my first grad program at Columbia, it was applied physiology and nutrition. I was studying nutritional biochemistry on the train, and a pharmacist thought that I was in pharmacy school. Okay, because it's a lot of chemistry. So I'm definitely looking forward to I'm going to do another video about cannabis educational programs. Thank you guys for the congratulations. There's more degrees popping up, undergraduate and graduate. On Instagram. I've come across a few young women that have PhDs. They're doing cannabis research. So there's a lot going on in academia. Every major university is doing medical cannabis research, and that's just the medical side. Okay, there's also the people who are into the horticulture, the agriculture, the plant scientists, the soil science people, the people who are into extractions and all of that. Um, and so school definitely gave me it refined my skills with reading research, looking at research, reading it, translating it. And so there are, for years I have been saying that there are books I need to write. I've been saying that for years, but now school has put that fire under me to now do that. Okay. And there's a series of books that I want to write around the topics of cannabis medicine, gaps that I see in information. So you could definitely look forward to that. And be sure to follow me in both places. If you're on YouTube, be sure to follow me on Instagram. If you're on Instagram, be sure to follow me on YouTube. Anyhow, I also wanted to talk. Last week, I went to a cannabis science conference in Kansas City. Okay. And I've been wanting to make a video about it and talk about it, but I was just busy, driving there, driving back, getting ready for graduation, driving to the East Coast. So I want to do a recap of that. Yes, I am going to start writing. I definitely am, because I had to do enough writing for school that I'm like, if I'm doing all this writing for school, I can do all this writing to get my books done, right? I just need to be disciplined about my time. And having 2 years of nonstop schoolwork, I'm just like, whoa, okay. So it showed me that I can definitely make my time a certain way and get it done. So that's going to happen. But the Cannabis Science Conference was interesting. There were 4 different tracks in this conference. I have the schedule right here. So there was a medical track, there was a analytical track, a cultivation track, and a compliance track. Okay, so what that means is the analytical track is for people who do like analytical chemistry. Okay, so they might be the ones that are dealing with the testing labs and testing for toxins and all of that. Okay, so those are the analytical people. Then you have the cultivation track. Those are the ones who are growers. So they're going to workshops presenting workshops about, the optimal light, for to get the best terpene and cannabinoid yields out of your cannabis, or the best optimal way to dry it, and all the science behind that. Okay, that's the cultivation track. Then there was the compliance track has to do with, there's a lot of rules and regulations and compliance that cannabis companies have to follow. If you are a cannabis brand, if you are a dispensary, there's rules and regulations, state compliance, federal compliance, whatever. And so there was the compliance track, and then there was the medical track. And the medical track was mostly being taught by, oh, you're taking notes? Okay, that's cool. The medical track was mostly being taught by nurses. Okay. So there were nurses, and it's interesting because every kind of healthcare practitioner has a different approach and way that they approach things. So nurses, there's a lot that can be learned from nurses. A nurse has a different approach than a nutritionist, or, I don't know, like, you have pharmacists and doctors and all these different people who are involved in helping to advise people on, medications and treatments. So, and with those 4 tracks, you could skip around. So you didn't have to sign up for one track and stay within that track. You could go to lectures in the medical track, lectures in the cultivation, lectures in compliance. There were lectures all day in all those categories. There was one very interesting PhD who I follow on Instagram right here. Her name is Allison, Dr. Allison. No, Dr. Riley Kirk. I think, yeah. Dr. Riley Kirk. She's from the Network of Applied Pharmacognosy, okay? And she does independent research. Her and one of her scientists, her and another scientist that were working on a study of called The Science of Smokability. They presented that research, and it was very interesting. And I think they said they're going to put it in a book at some point, but it's very interesting. The Science of Smokability. Insights on cultivation and post-harvest techniques to enhance the quality of the smoking experience. Okay, so they presented that for an hour, and it was extremely interesting. I like stuff like that, and it's really important, because a lot of times scientists don't work with people, and a lot of times the practitioners who work with people don't read the scientific research. This is why I call my name online the body scientist, because it's like, I'm a practitioner, but I also read scientific research. A lot of times there's a disconnect. So the researchers do really important research. It doesn't get to the people in the real world who are applying it, and so there's a gap. So that's always been my mission, was to translate this research to people, which is why I've never been a vegan. Okay, because 20 years ago when I was reading studies in my first graduate program, and everybody was talking about veganism, I would read studies, and I never came across anything that said that being a vegan was healthier. A lot of people quote research, and they never read the research, and they don't even have the academic background and skills to read the research. You have to have some type of background in science or something to even understand the research a lot of times, right? So another thing. So the thing is that it was a cool conference. It was informative. I feel like I did learn some things. Again, some things to think about. It's always good networking. But the medical track, or I feel like maybe they should have, in the medical track, either they should also have maybe pharmacists speak, but I don't know how different it would be from a nurse. But pharmacists are the ones that really understand drugs, but nurses are always applying it and dealing with patients. So I think maybe they should add another track that's a health track, and have other healthcare practitioners besides nurses speak. Okay. First, I was thinking that they should add that to the medical track, but then I'm like, well, maybe those other practitioners don't fit into the medical side, but maybe health. Like if you had experienced herbalists speak, or maybe a massage therapist, or somebody in an athletic trainer or something, right? Maybe they don't fit into the medical because they're not a licensed medical practitioner, but they are a healthcare practitioner. So I definitely think that they should expand on that medical side. And one thing that I definitely see is a big just issue in the cannabis world, and I've done videos on this in the past, is the lack of understanding of nutrition. Okay, um, nutrition and cannabis science and nutrition science are integrated. They overlap in so many ways. And I've always said that I'm the kind of scientist that seeks to understand nature, not control it. Right? You have a lot of scientists who they are seeking to figure out how they can tweak a molecule, how they can create a new molecule, how they can make this molecule more permeable when it wasn't before, how they can make this molecule smaller when it wasn't before. Like, which is why I'm not a believer in nanoparticles and nanotechnology. Okay, there's a lot of nanotechnology being used in food and products, period, but it's definitely being used in the cannabis world where they're making nanoparticles. And there's somebody who I follow on Instagram who I respect a lot. Um, and she had posted something, um, about how she puts cannabis in her coffee in the morning, and she does it with this powder. And I look and see about this powder because I'm like, this, cannabis is fat soluble. So like, I'm sure anytime you see a powder, it's usually something processed, usually. But I don't like to make conclusions until I actually look something up and analyze it. So when I looked it up, I saw that it was nanoparticles, right? And it was created by a Black woman who has a background in food science. Okay. Now, food science, I did have to take some food science classes when I was going into my graduate program in nutrition, right? I had to take some food science classes. Food science is not nutrition science. It's not the same thing at all. Okay. Food science really had nothing to do with nutrition. Food science is like understanding the science of food. Okay. Like why something, burns at a certain point, or, it's just a science of what food, right? Which can overlap with culinary and nutrition, but it's neither. But with food science, a lot of them are trying to create things. They're the ones that's trying to create new products and twerk certain things in the food, as opposed to just being. They're not concerned with health. They're just concerned with how they can make more products. That's food science, right? So when I saw that the girl had a background in food science, I'm like, that makes sense. She's not thinking about. She's just thinking, oh, I created these nanoparticles of cannabis that can get into somebody's system much faster. But is it healthy? You know, um, Food scientists don't ask that question. They don't ask, is it healthy? And when I saw that product, I'm like, I wouldn't take that. I don't trust nanoparticles. I would stay with how people have been consuming it. Okay. I would get some coconut infused cannabis oil and put that in my tea. And if it took a little bit longer to work, then okay. But I would not mess with nanoparticles. Okay. And I'm going to do a video soon talking about that. I haven't been doing a lot of videos lately because I was busy with school. There's so many things I've been wanting to talk about. So expect lots of new videos every week now from me. Now that I'm not in school and I can really talk about a lot of things. Okay. Um, like for example, at this conference, there was in the analytical track. Okay, they had a talk that was entitled Polysorbate 80, an emulsifying agent in cannabis microbiology, right? So polysorbate 80, an emulsifying agent in cannabis microbiology. Okay, so this is for the analytical track. So the analytical track is not concerned. The analytical scientists, they're not concerned with, is it healthy? Okay, that's not their concern. Their concern is, oh, we have this new emulsifier. Okay, just like with food scientists, that we can use. And why do people use emulsifiers? Because cannabinoids are fat soluble, which means they belong in fat. So you would see people put it in butter and coconut oil. They absorb by fat. But in order for people to have this fat soluble vitamin work in something that's not fat filled with fat, like gummies, okay, or some type of lemonade or juice, they use emulsifiers, okay? And these emulsifiers help to make it more fat soluble, but they're not good for your gut. They're not good for your health. Polysorbate 80 is an emulsifier. It is very bad for your gut, okay? It's bad for your health. I think it also might be cancer causing, okay? So there's no talk about that. They're just talking about how it's a great emulsifier. No question as to whether or not it's healthy. And so a lot of the products in the dispensaries, a lot of the edibles, the gummies, they're full of toxic emulsifiers. And nobody talks about that, okay? So if I'm really focused on the medical side of things. It's one thing if somebody wants to use it recreationally for fun, that's all good. But there are profound medical properties and applications. And now when you're mixing it with toxic emulsifiers that are bad for your gut and causing health problems that are bad for your microbiome, it defeats the purpose. If you have GI problems, if you have diabetes, if you have cancer, the last thing that you need to, an autoimmune disease, the last thing you need to do is be consuming polysorbate 80. And if you're healthy and you have no problems, the last thing you need to do is consume polysorbate 80 because you don't want to have those problems, right? So the fact that there's no talk about that, right? And so for me, it's like just like in the field of nutrition and fitness, I've always stayed on the outskirts. I networked in my field a bit, but I stayed in the outskirts a lot because the sports nutrition world promotes a lot of crap too. When I would go to sports nutrition conferences, it was all this protein powder and nutrition bars, which are all crap. And it's hard to speak up about that at a conference when all those are all the sponsors, right? And so in the cannabis world, you have all the people who own the dispensaries, and the people that own the dispensaries, they don't really have a choice over what products they can carry. They have to buy licensed products from licensed companies within their state. So they are stuck buying whatever is available. And most of the owners of the dispensaries, they don't know how to analyze ingredients. Okay, they don't realize that there's all these toxic additives. A lot of the companies making it, some of them don't realize it or they don't care, but some of them don't realize it. Some of them never looked into whether or not these emulsifiers are even healthy, and I can tell you that none of them are. So I always said that I'm the kind of scientist that seeks to understand nature and not manipulate it. You have a lot of scientists that their whole thing is trying to manipulate nature and change something and tweak something. I'm the kind of scientist that attempts to understand it and learn from it. So, with that being said, that means that cannabis is teaching you that we need a lot of fat. You guys know I love to talk about fat. We have endocannabinoids, and again, I'll be doing more videos in the future. I've done videos in the past where I talk about the endocannabinoid system and cannabis and nutrition. But we have endocannabinoids, which are cannabinoids that our body makes that binds to our cannabinoid receptors. There are endocannabinoids that our body makes, and then there are phytocannabinoids, which come from the plant. Okay. The phytocannabinoids, which come from the plant, which is like CBD, THC, those are the main known ones, but there's a lot of other ones like CBN and CBG and all this other stuff. They bind to the cannabinoid receptors, and that elicits a change in a system. We have an endocannabinoid system just like we have a respiratory system, an immune system, a digestive system, a central nervous system, a lymphatic system, a reproductive system, um, you know, circulatory system. We have all these systems, right? But we also have an endocannabinoid system. And the endocannabinoid system modulates all of the other systems. This is the reason why there are so many cannabis applications in the body for so many different things, for brain issues, for skin issues, for immune system issues, because we have these cannabinoid receptors over practically every organ in our body, right? But there's none in the part of the brain that deals with our breathing, which is why cannabis cannot kill you. Why, if you consume too much of it, a whole bunch of it, you might feel like you're going to die, but you won't, because there's no receptors for it in the part of the brain that affects our breathing. But opioid receptors, there are opioid receptors in that part of our brain, and that's why opioids can kill people so easily. Um, so endocannabinoids that our body makes on demand to help modulate certain systems in our body. It's made by our neurons. They're made from arachidonic acid. Arachidonic acid comes from animal fats. It's in eggs, it's in milk, dairy, eggs, meat. Okay, it's not in plant foods. So what does that tell you? That you need a lot of those fats, okay? You need a lot of animal fats to keep your brain healthy, your nervous system healthy, your endocannabinoid system healthy, and every other system in your body healthy, because they're all modulated by the endocannabinoid system. So when I started really getting into this cannabis world, I started seeing people who were using cannabis medicine for chronic issues. They had serious chronic issues. And my question is always, why do you have those? Why do you have multiple sclerosis? Why do you have these problems in the first place? Okay. They don't just come out of nowhere. And then I find out this person's a vegan. And I'm like, oh, but that person just ate some butter, then maybe they wouldn't need cannabis medicine. They wouldn't have that because they wouldn't have that problem in the first place, right? So I've seen a large amount of vegans in this cannabis medicine space using cannabis all the time for these chronic issues. When I've used cannabis medicinally or somebody in my family, it's been for acute issues. Got into a car accident, have a headache, burn myself, got some type of rash or a cut or something I'm healing, some type of acute pain. But if you have a chronic health issue, you must ask, why do you have that chronic health issue? It's not because, and research is showing that a lot of chronic health problems are due to endocannabinoid deficiencies. So what is that telling you? People need to eat more animal fat. Then you look at the world of medicinal cannabis, and they're trying to put it in lemonade and like water-based drinks and gummies and all this junk food, cookies and brownies and Rice Krispie treats. Like, the cannabis world pushes a lot of junk food. If you're using it medicinally, you shouldn't be consuming it that way. You should be putting it in some brothy soup. You should be putting it in some medicinal tea. You should put it in like a warm milk-based drink, make some buttery sauce and some seafood and eat it that way. I haven't seen any thing that addresses this. When I was at the conference, there was a man from Charlottesville, Virginia. I actually want to get in touch with him because he came with a bunch of books, okay? Like, just a bunch of books on cannabis science and cannabis medicine, a bunch of books written by PhDs, MDs, pharmacists, like a 600-page book on the endocannabinoid system. I didn't even know that there was that much information about the endocannabinoid system. He had books about the spiritual side, about growing, craft growing, just everything, sexuality, just everything involving cannabis medicine. And he had a few books dealing with culinary and cooking. And there was one book that he said to me, "Oh, that book is out of print." He was acting like it was such a special book. And the book had some title like, I should look up the title so I can say it. I can just shout out this title, but I don't even know if I'll be able to find it. But let me check real quick. Hold on. But it was supposed to be some book about, like, cannabis medicine. Hold on, let me see. It was supposed to be like some type of cookbook. I have it in my phone, actually. I was just trying to look it up to see if I could find it real quick, but I probably can't. It was some type of cookbook. Yeah, I'm not gonna try to find it while I'm on here. I'm not gonna. If I could, I would have shot the book out. But it was supposed to be some type of cookbook that had these really special medicinal cannabis recipes, and he's telling me, "Oh, it's out of print, and like, this book is so great and it's so important and it's da-da-da." And I'm looking through the book, and it was just a bunch of crap. There was nothing special about those recipes. There was nothing medicinal about those recipes. None of those are recipes that I'd recommend. They had canola oil in them. And I'm just thinking, the people in this cannabis medicine world are so clueless. Like, nutrition is the basis of health. Using cannabis medicinally is great, but you have to get the foundation and the basics first, and that is good nutrition. And it's so lacking in this field. So that's something I definitely want to address, and I would like to see more talks about that in the cannabis medicine talks. It's like people still have such a pharmaceutical approach to things that they still just skip over the point. Okay, like, why is this person's system out of balance in the first place? It's not because of a lack of medicine, a lack of drugs. Okay. It was very interesting. There was one Black woman from Howard University who was presenting. I didn't go to her talk, and she was talking about, I think she might have been a nurse because of what she was talking about. But I found that interesting, So cannabis nursing is a whole recognized field. I'm going to start bringing on pharmacists, doctors, nurses, and people in the medical cannabis space to interview. So that's one thing you can look out for. Okay, not only do I have books that I'm working on simultaneously, and that I will definitely be writing for sure. Some of you have heard me say that over the years, definitely getting it done. But I'm also going to be interviewing. I'm also going to be interviewing a bunch of people. When I first started my program, I interviewed for a school project. I interviewed a cannabis nurse in Chicago, and her whole practice was just taking people with children and adults with seriously chronic health issues and getting them off these medications and having them use cannabis instead. And I learned a lot from that interview with her. And I know so much more now. So I definitely want to bring her on. And I remember she had a partner. Her partner was, I think, a psychiatrist or a psychologist or something who also worked with like plant medicine with her patients. And I'm going to talk about, I'm going to do some future videos about mushrooms. And because, even though the program was a cannabis program, it was at the School of Pharmacy. So all my professors were pharmacists, and we learned a lot about opioids and psychedelics and other things as well. So I also there in the past, some people have asked me to speak on mushrooms. A year ago, I was like, not really that interested, and not in a position to speak on it. But I will be speaking about those things. Um, uh, so okay, hold on a minute. You love shrooms. Why do you love shrooms? Um, and the two work very differently. Hold on a second. I'm looking at something. I need. Okay, hold on. I was trying to see something. I'm sorry. I'm looking at my microdose. They help your depression. Have you ever tried cannabis? Did that help your depression? Um. Okay. I'm going to. I'm sorry. I'm not talking. I need to remove somebody from my. Okay. Yes. Okay. I need to remove somebody from my YouTube. Okay, so cannabis didn't help you with your depression. Okay, but cannabis lowered your libido and didn't help with your depression, but mushrooms did. Very interesting. Okay, so yeah, um, I definitely see a lot of conferences around cannabis and business. A lot of business conferences. Not enough science conferences, and a lot of the science conferences are just about like manufacturing products and testing, and I don't see them really getting to the health. And even with the nurses, I think that real herbalists, okay, not fraudulent herbalists, but real herbalists, real root herbalists also need to speak because their approach is different than nurses. Okay, there's a lot of applications that I learned from when I first started learning about cannabis medicine. I was learning from a Jamaican friend of mine in Chicago who I've known since 2009. And he's the one that first started teaching me. And I've learned a lot from him. I've learned more from him when it comes to medicinal applications. Okay. And nurses and stuff. Nurses are great. I'm not going to, especially when it comes, because they deal with medications all the time. Okay. So I'm not going to sit, talk negatively about them, but it's just a different approach. And nurses are limited in what they can do sometimes because they're in the hospital and they're bound by licensing and stuff, so they might be a little bit different. And time, it might be different than how an herbalist might approach it. So there are different approaches. So I definitely like to see more of that in the field. I would love to see more of the legacy, and to me the legacy people, there's a long history of cannabis medicine in India. There's a long history of cannabis medicine in China. There's a long history of cannabis medicine in South Africa. There's a long history of cannabis medicine in Mexico, Colombia, Jamaica, and I would love to see like, discussions where you're getting people from those traditions, from those various traditions, really speaking about the history and medicinal applications. I don't feel like that's being done enough. I feel like all these scientists and doctors and pharmacists who are talking about cannabis medicine and nurses, a lot of them are very new to it, and I don't see people really digging back and asking those real legacy people, not just people who were selling it, but people who were working with cannabis medicine from back then. And that's what I attempt to dig up and research and present to people and bring to the forefront. I think that's lacking in this world of cannabis medicine. It is important to have a background of Western science because if you're dealing with, people who are on pharmaceuticals and they're dealing with the Western medical system, you have to be able to understand within that. You have to understand how the cannabis can affect the medications. So it's still important to have that knowledge. But that indigenous, knowledge is lacking. Just like there's a lot of parallels between the world of nutrition science, being a nutritionist. There's a lot of parallels between that and anything dealing with cannabis or medications. Okay. Just the Food and Drugs, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. I've been saying for years, the food companies and the drug companies, they're the same people. Okay. They are the same people. And there's so many parallels with misinformation, propaganda. I mean, I see a lot of parallels with raw milk and cannabis. Okay. Like how the raw milk laws are different in every state. Raw milk is medicine. They try to make it so hard for you to get it. Same thing with cannabis. Okay. Um, Let me see if there's anything else I want to say. Kansas City, I talk about Kansas City a lot on my travel page. So if you want to hear me talk about, my experience in Kansas City, the drive there, my thoughts about it, you can check my page, Makeda Blood Travels. Sorry, a friend called me. You just found out the raw milk thing? Oh yeah, I've been drinking raw milk for like 20 years in many states. Okay, it's a superfood. You can't live without it. Wait for my delivery to come in New York in the morning. Um, I'm just looking at my notes from the conference to see if there's anything. Do you like the raw milk? I love it. I'll drink it in many states. I'm just going through my notes to make sure I have said everything that I wanted to say. And I will be doing a future video about cannabis science education programs. Okay. I'm going to be doing a whole video about that. Let me just go through my list to make sure that I have said everything. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I was talking about the books. Okay. When I was talking about how nutrition is lacking. Thank you for the congratulations. Um, you don't like the raw milk, but you tried it. That's interesting. I haven't come across one single person that didn't like it. I know people who never liked milk at all, and they drank raw milk and they loved it. So that's interesting that you didn't like it. Well, did you try cow's milk or goat's milk? Because goat's milk is nasty. But I've never met anybody that didn't like the raw cow's milk. It's interesting. Thank you for sharing that. But yes, at the conference, the food served. Okay, it was a whole bunch of sugary muffins and cakes. Okay, whole bunch of sugary muffins and cakes, which is also what happened when I would go to my campus for our symposium. My campus, we had to go to campus every semester for a symposium, and they would feed us the crappiest food. And I'm just like, again, the disconnect between nutrition, okay, the world of nutrition and nutrition science, and the people in the cannabis world and the cannabis science, and you're supposed to be about health, but then you're eating the worst quality food, you know. So that was one thing at this thing. It was just a bunch of sweets and cookie. I'm like, people would be better off putting cheese and berries down, okay? Or cheese and crackers is better than putting a whole bunch of sugar, like muffins and cookies. And but at lunch they served pulled pork, barbecue chicken, and I think was it mashed potatoes. So it wasn't, or some type of potatoes. So it wasn't vegan friendly. And I read that Kansas City is not a vegan friendly city, which I love. Okay. So I love that they weren't serving a bunch of vegan like couscous and salad. But they had a lot of sugary snacks. Um, the book vendor, somebody on my YouTube said they love raw milk too. Okay. But the books at the Manhattan, Virginia, that was great. I've never been to a conference where I saw somebody with such a wide array of books. You know, I love books. I'm always reading. Like right now, what I have with me now, I'm reading this book, the Doctor Approved Cannabis Handbook, Reverse Disease, Treat Pain, and Enhance Your Wellness with Medical Marijuana and CBD, written by Benjamin Kaplan, MD. He's also my Instagram friend. I'm going to have him on. I'm going to interview him. He's a doctor, I think, in Boston. He's in Massachusetts. This is a good book for someone who's interested in using cannabis medicinally. Um, I am reading this book, Marijuana Boom: The Rise and Fall of Colombia's First Drug Paradise. Okay, so this book is talking about how before Colombia was known for cocaine and coffee, it was known for cannabis, and this was like the main thing. So I'm reading this book. Um, I'm also reading this book right now, The Brain's Way of Healing: Remarkable Discoveries and Recoveries from the Frontiers of Neuroplasticity. This is written by an MD. This is a New York Times bestseller. I came across this in Barnes and Noble, and it looked really interesting. And I was learning about neuroplasticity when I was studying mushrooms. So I said, okay, so I'm looking at this book. And I find that every time I buy a New York Times bestseller, it's an excellent book. Um, oops. I'm also reading this book right now, The African Marijuana Gold Mine: Rich Mineral Soil Meets Wall Street. Okay. Um, it's a very interesting book. I don't know if you know that Ghana legalized cannabis for medicinal and recreational purposes. Now, I'm not sorry, not recreational. I meant to say medicinal and industrial purposes. So I don't know what kind of system they're putting into place. Because once a country or a state legalizes it, then they have to put the system into place. So I don't know what they're doing, but cannabis, hemp has a lot of industrial purposes. So many things, and that's another thing. I'm focusing on the medical side, but then there's the industrial side. Like hemp can be used for making furniture, making houses, making things that we use that are made out of plastic and made out of nylon. All these toxic things can all be made out of hemp. Gasoline, which is poisoning the atmosphere with the gasoline, or cutting down trees. You can, instead of cutting down trees, which is way more destructive, it takes way longer to grow a tree. Can use hemp to do all those things. Clothes, yeah, because nylon clothes and all this polyester and acrylic, that we're wearing is toxic. Hemp can be used for that. Same thing with cars. Yeah, cars, the gas, all of that. Um, So I know that in the future there probably will be more cannabis programs popping up at agricultural schools and horticultural schools and engineering, and because it just has applications everywhere. I'm just focused on the medical side. Um, People at every cannabis conference I go to, yeah, hemp can be used for paper too. Every cannabis conference I go to, people look very healthy. People look, it's diverse, white, black, Hispanic, Asian. People look extremely healthy. They're in a good mood. I noticed that at I don't care if it's a business conference. There's a business cannabis conference I went to in Newark, New Jersey in 2022. I'm going to go again this year in the fall. Everybody there look happy and healthy. Everybody. Okay. So that's another observation. I'm looking at the notes I took. I talked about how cannabis nurses are limited in nutrition knowledge, and the knowledge about edibles is lacking. Yes, there was a nurse who was presenting in the medical track with the girl from Howard. The black woman from Howard, she was pro edibles. The other nurse was totally against them, and it was really because she felt like, you know, um, they were unhealthy. And I was like, I raised my hand, like, they are, the ones in the dispensary are unhealthy. But if you infuse it into your own food, then it can be very healthy. So I wouldn't say I'm against edibles because what's in the dispensary isn't healthy. You just have to learn. Like when I've ingested it for pain, I didn't buy edibles. I took cannabis infused coconut oil and I put it in my milk based tea, and that's how I drink it. My pain in my back was gone quickly. Same thing with my headache. I didn't go to the dispensary and eat cannabis gummies and cannabis brownies. So if you're thinking about edibles in terms of brownies and cookies, I could see why a nurse would say I'm not with that. But again, that lack of nutrition knowledge, just like it's not just this or that. Yes, the stuff in the dispensary is crap. You can consume cannabis edibles in a healthier way, but that lack of nutrition knowledge is like very much lacking. Um, Somebody said that cannabis helps them with the lack of appetite. Yes, and it helps you achieve a hard erection. Okay, well, I did a video about that. I did a video on Instagram, YouTube about cannabis, vitamin A and vitamin D for strong erections and WAP. Okay, that's the name of the video. If you haven't seen that video, check that video out. I do like to know more about that just because I like to, I do independent research and just wanting to know because I know how it affects women, how it affects men. According to the science, they said it didn't have the same effect on men, but I don't really necessarily believe that. I think that it can have the same effect on men because I have a video called Cannabis Orgasms. And so when women use it topically, it increases the flow of blood to the genitals. It makes her a lot more aroused, a lot more sensitive, orgasms a lot more intense. Um, the same thing, yes, it does increase orgasms. Yes, it does. Um, so if it does that for women, I believe that it makes sense that it would do it for men because males, the tissue of men's reproductive organs is very similar to women. Okay. So I feel like if it's doing that to men, why wouldn't it do that to women? You know what I'm saying? I mean, if it's doing it to women, why wouldn't it do it to men? And without being a TMI person, I can say I've had experiences in my personal life where a male partner had, extreme sensitivity and extremely intense, powerful orgasms from using um, cannabis oil topically. Okay, so there's definitely sexual applications, and that's one of the things I want to write one of my books on. One of my first books is going to be on that. So thanks for sharing that. Hopefully that's actually true. Um, and I was saying that the conference, even though every conference I go to, there's a mixture of people. This conference was heavily white, and the presenters at all the cannabis conferences are mostly white. You might see like one or two black people, virtually no Hispanics, virtually no Asians. Okay, I just mostly see white people speaking. And so I would like to see more diversity of speakers at these conferences. And pretty soon I'll be one of them. I'm going to encourage the people who graduate from our program who are doing certain things to speak. Um, and it was interesting. They at the Cannabis Science Conference, they had a presentation about diversity, about DEI and diversity in the industry. And when that conference started, half the room walked out. When that talk started, half the room walked out. It was a black woman who's a cannabis attorney, and she's in New York. She moved to New York from somewhere. A very brilliant woman. She was speaking about how she identifies as a Rasta. And thank you, love. Yes, I am. She was writing about how she identifies as a Rasta, and that back in the day, a lot of people got their weed from the Rasta man, but she doesn't see Rastas being represented in the legal cannabis market, let's say in New York or in America. She moved to New York to help people get card licenses. So every state has like a social equity thing where they're like trying to make up for the war on drugs and the amount of black people they sent to jail and Hispanics they sent to jail for cannabis. And so they have like every state has certain programs where they are attempting to prioritize giving licenses to people in that group first. And so every state has different rules of how they're doing that. In New York, the rule was you or someone in your family has to have a cannabis conviction, not just an arrest. And you have to have been a successful business owner for like 3 years or something like that. You have to have run a successful business you owned, I think, like 10% and made a certain amount of profit within 3 years. Adding that eliminates a lot of people. There's a lot of people with cannabis convictions that have not been a successful business owner for 3 years that can show that document that. So that reads out a lot of people. But she said she got helped. She brought a team of accountants and all these people together to get these people's applications together. Out of the 25 applications she got together, 20 of them got their license. Okay. So this black female attorney, she was talking about this, and she was very brilliant. And then there was a black man with her. I forget what he did, but what his actual job was. And I know he helps like staff businesses. And he was talking about how a lot of companies use AI to hire people now, and how studies show that AI seriously discriminates. And he talked about how that happens and how a lot of applications just get rejected before anybody looks at them because of AI. And it was a very interesting talk. The attorney was also talking about how there's no representation um, at all in black agricultural or supplement attorneys. Okay. So she might have been an agricultural and supplement attorney as well. She said there's no black representation. Um, she said that there's a large number. I'm looking at my notes now. That there's a large number of suits in the cannabis industry around discrimination and then safety and harassment. So a lot of cannabis companies they're having a lot of lawsuits around discrimination and then safety and harassment. Okay, and then yeah, okay. I mentioned the legacy. Okay, let me see what else. Oh, the black man, he talked about how when people talk about diversity, they're always focused on race, religion, sexuality, sexual orientation. They usually focus on those things. But he said that another important thing with diversity is diversity of thought, which I totally agreed, which is what I was saying about the medical track. It was all nurses, and nurses just have a particular way of approaching things. I think that there's a lot that could be added from people who deal with the nutrition side of things and other sides of health. But it was just nurses, and I feel like that's the whole diversity of thought is that's an example of what I'm talking about. So he was talking about how it's important, but diversity of thought is often overlooked, and that it brings diversity to a conversation, which to me brings better solutions. Like the things that I'm saying about emulsifiers and polysorbate 80. If the conversation was really about health and what's the healthiest and not just how you can make the most money, then my perspective and me saying that would help put the pieces of the puzzle together to bring the best type of products for people. Because somebody might be coming from a different field where they don't know about the health implications of poly. That's not even what they're thinking about. They're thinking, oh, it can help the product be more stable. And I'm thinking, or it could be, you want to make nanoparticles because more fast acting. So you think it's solving that problem, but you have no idea that it has detrimental health effects. So that's the reason why having diversity of thought to me is very important. Um, okay, how does changing marijuana to Schedule 3 affect the business? I'll answer one question. I'm just going to finish these notes. I talk about using AI in the hiring process can perpetuate serious biases in hiring practices. He said generative AI learns from you, the hiring manager. Okay, there's a lot of financial abuse, and there's a lot of financial abuse in the research space. Okay, a lot of financial abuse in the research, which is the reason why I used to want to be a research scientist, and I moved away from that because I realized there's a lot of politics in scientific research, and I still go back and forth with whether or not I want to do that because I feel like there's important work to be done. There are people who do it, but I just know the politics. And I'm like, do I want to do that? Do I want to be bothered with that? And when I've come across these scientists on Instagram who are nonprofits and they are doing independent research, that's the way to go to me. Because when you're getting funded by large corporations, a lot of times they want your research to fit their agenda. And it's hard to really do good research. So I've always believed in independently funded scientific research, and that might be my path. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I'm just the one to read that research and translate it to people so it can help you. Okay. Um, yeah, and it's also important. He mentioned to be conscious of the sample diversity in research, which is something that I've always been aware of. It's something I'm talking. I'm recording something. I can't talk to you. I'm recording a video right now. Close the door. I'm in the middle of recording something. I'm in the middle of recording something. Close the door. Close the door. Close the door. Goodness. I'm sorry. I'm at my parents' house right now, and my dad is in the middle trying to talk to me. I'm in the middle of recording. Um. So anyhow, it's important to be uh the sampling diversity in research. I've always been aware of that when it comes to science, right? I've always been aware that when it comes to science, because in the field in the field of medicine and sports science, most of the research is done on men. Most of the research is done on white men. Okay, I remember learning that in my first graduate program 20 years ago. They were like, most of the research is done on white men. So now, how does it apply to a black person, an Asian, a Hispanic? How does it apply to a woman? You know what I'm saying? If most of the research is done on white men, the way certain medications and things affect people is different depending on their different ethnic backgrounds, and and your gender. Men and women have different systems and different ways of metabolizing. Um, so he also mentioned that, and that's important. That's important in sports science. That's important in medicine. It's important, all those fields. Okay, when you're dealing with bodies. So also, the attorney, she was talking about how research can be done outside of the country to mitigate some of these issues. Okay. And so you have, what is her name? Professor Meyer. There's a woman, Mary Dreyer. She was an American nurse who went to Jamaica. This, I don't know if it was like 30 years ago, 40 years ago. I don't know. She went to Jamaica and she was in the Rasta communities, and she was studying the pregnant Rasta women who were consuming cannabis during their pregnancy. And then afterwards, she monitored their children for, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years, 15, until they grew up. She saw they were all excellent students, honor roll, highly intelligent. They all soared. Okay. There was nothing wrong with any of them. Okay. None of them had any developmental delays or anything like that. Okay. Um, so apparently that study, is being redone right now. And this attorney, she's involved in it. I would like to actually interview her too. Now that I'm talking about that, she's somebody else I want to interview. But she's involved in this study being redone in Jamaica, by some scientists. So they were talking about how doing research outside the country can mitigate some of the issues. That's something that I'm interested in, thinking about, because even if I don't know if I'm going to do a doctorate or not, I don't know. I'm conflicted on both sides. It has to make sense for me to do that. But if I did, I think about what kind of research would I want to do, because you're committed to doing this research for a long time, and I don't really want to be in a laboratory. So I've thought, and I like to travel, and there's a lot of countries now that are, cannabis medicine is becoming a thing. I'm supposed to be in Colombia right now for a conference, but I decided not to go because I had too much going on. But the thought of doing research in Mexico or Colombia, um, is a good one to me. I'm like, maybe I would want to focus my research there, so then I could travel to and get research done, and bring something new. I don't know. But these are just things that were addressed at the Cannabis Science Conference. I'm definitely going to attend the 2025. 2025, I'm determined to be a speaker. And by 2025, I'm determined to have a couple books published, okay? Because there's no reason why I can't just get it done now. Instead of arguing with people on the internet, writing books to them, and I've had to write so many essays and compile research while I was in this program. So I'm trained to do that now. I've been doing it. I'm going to keep doing it and get these books done. So that's just my notes and my recap of the Cannabis Science Conference. I just see how these things could be better. That's something that maybe one day I would be interested in organizing, but I would need a team of people, because you can't do it by yourself. And it's always hard for me to find a team of people that actually do what they say they're going to do. And I'm only one person. So that's why there's so many things I want to do and they don't get done, because it's like I don't have the help. So I'm just really like, I need help, but I can't depend on that because people just, drop the ball all the time. So I have to really put together a plan of, I'm going to do this and then this and then this and then this. There's certain things I would like to do, but I don't know if I have the manpower to do. There's certain things that I definitely must do. And so those things will be prioritized. But I would love to see a cannabis science conference that's science based, but also rooted in indigenous sciences as well. And if somebody is pushing a vegan diet, you're not rooted in indigenous sciences. If you're calling yourself, if you're over here and you're so-called Afrocentric, okay, and you're wearing the dashiki and the African, what you think is African, and you're calling yourself Afrocentric, but then you're pushing veganism, you are so disconnected from Africa and anything Afrocentric. Because the thing I don't understand is, do you have African friends? And do you talk to them about what they ate growing up? Because I have a lot of African friends who grew up in various African countries. None of them grew up a vegan. Many of them grew up drinking milk. They grew up eating all kinds of organ meats, all kinds of animals, even that a lot of people, I can't say a lot of people here wouldn't eat, because if you listen to Shay Shay, Club Shay Shay, what's his name? Shannon Sharp. He's always talking about the things he ate. He ate all kinds of animals from the woods, okay? A lot of my African friends did the same thing. So even when people talk about how Americans eat, I'm like, America is a huge country. A lot of times people just come to certain cities. Most of America is rural. You drive through the United States, through most states, it's completely rural. People eat all kinds of stuff. There are people in New York who eat raccoons and possums and rabbits and deer. None of those things are alligators. None of those things are touched by the commercial food industry. So the vegans are making an argument about the commercial food industry. The commercial food industry just deals with chickens, pigs, and cows. You don't have to eat chickens, pigs, and cows. There's all kinds of other animals you can eat. And if you want to eat chickens, pigs, and cows, you can get them from the farmer's market, from a farm, where they're not being treated like crap and fed crap. Okay. So this the whole vegan thing. So for me, I'm very picky about who I collaborate with. So I can't collaborate with somebody who's all about cannabis medicine, but then you're pushing a vegan diet because that's unhealthy. That's not holistic. That's you have it here, but you don't have it there. You know, no. And so it's rare that I quite see what I fit what that I see. Like there are huge pieces of the puzzle missing, and I don't see it. So I feel like my job is to pull that together. Okay. Um, and it's going to start with my books. And I can't worry about, it's almost like if you're a comedian, or even I'm going to make the Wendy Williams comparison. Like she knew she couldn't really have friends. Like Wendy Williams was like, I don't really have friends because she couldn't be friends with celebrities because she would feel bad talking about them and telling the truth about them. I imagine it would be true for a comedian because comedians will make fun of anybody. You get caught up in something, you can get made fun of. So it has to be hard to really have friends. They have to just be like, well, this is the path I chose. I can't really be friends with people. Well, with me being a critic, the critic that I am, I'm not going to jump on a bandwagon. I could meet you. You might have a product. Like I saw somebody doing in a blog interview. She's a black woman. She had a cannabis infused ice cream company. She might have been in New York. I don't remember. But a lot of people just jump on the bandwagon, and I'm like, I'm gonna look at these ingredients, and I don't believe that that's a good product, and I'm not going to support it or talk good about it just because it's black owned when it is a bad product. Like I am going to tell the truth about it. I'm not trying to create enemies, but I have to tell the truth. Um, and so for that reason, it's like I don't feel like I can be buddy buddy with everybody because oh, you have a cannabis brand, and I'm automatically going to promote it or sell it. No, and that will be my issue with having a dispensary is like, you're stuck with a lot of these crappy products. Okay. So that's really lacking. So anyhow, I'm gonna let you guys go. Um, thank you for listening. If you learned something from this conversation, please like it and please share it. Check out my other videos on cannabis medicine because I have plenty of them. Um, if you're on Instagram and you don't follow me on YouTube, follow me on YouTube at the Body Scientist 81. And if you're on YouTube and you don't follow me on Instagram, be sure to follow me on Instagram at the_body_scientist. Somebody said, hold on a minute. I'll be making a list of people I'm going to delete when this video is over because some of you just are like so obnoxious. Okay. Okay. Taking notes. All right. Oh yes. Okay. So I have a nurse that responded on my Instagram, and they said they would love to help me with my research or share some stories with me if that helps. Yes, I would love that. And if you have cannabis medicine stories, and if you even want to come on live, we can also do that as well. I like talking to other practitioners, and I'm interested in the cannabis nursing because I know that cannabis nursing is like a recognized field now. I don't really understand how that works since it's a federally illegal drug. Um, Somebody asked me too about yes, I'm definitely curious, and I did interview a nurse in Chicago who was, I guess you could say, she was a cannabis nurse, and her work was very important. Her story was very important, so I definitely would love that. And somebody asked me how moving it to Schedule 3 affects business. Um, my this video is about to end in a minute on Instagram. On Instagram, I have an hour to record. If it goes over an hour, I don't think I can archive the conversation. So I'm going to have to cap it in a minute. But I will do another video about the implications of Schedule 3, of cannabis being moved from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. I'll do another video about that. I'll probably post it on couple of my IG pages. So I'll do that soon, within, either later today or tomorrow for sure. So stay tuned for that. And some of the stuff I'll be putting on my page, The Renaissance Amazon. So if you don't follow my YouTube page, The Renaissance Amazon, you might want to. You can also follow it on Instagram. It's Copper Showgirl now, because that page keeps getting deleted. So I'll attach a link to it. But I'll probably post that video on both pages about Schedule 3. Okay, so stay tuned for that. And I hope you guys are well. And I will be offering consultations for people who are interested in using cannabis medicinally, in combination with, nutrition and fitness. So look out for all those things. But if you have questions before I put it out, feel free to email me, hit me in my inbox, and I'll see you guys later. Okay? Bye. Okay. Sorry here on YouTube. I'm just finishing this out. I'm gonna say a couple things to you guys before I close out. Because on YouTube I don't have that hour limit. So hold on. Hold on, I'm just running my things. I know you guys just have dead space. Sorry. So yeah, I will be doing a video soon about the Schedule 3. That's really important. Hold on. I can't write and talk at the same time, so hold on. I'm just trying to post this video on Instagram. Again, make sure you follow me. Make sure you follow me on Instagram as well, because I post some things on Instagram that I don't post on YouTube. Like a lot of the books that I don't post books on YouTube because you can't post photos, right? So I post my books on Instagram. So definitely follow me in both places. And look out for, check out my other videos. And I'm going to start doing a lot more. Educational videos. So if there's anything you want to see me discuss in the realm of cannabis science, let me know. And on my Instagram, I have a subscription section where I'll be putting extra information, extra talks. So if you want extra, you can join my subscriptions on on Instagram. Okay, my Instagram page is the_body_scientist. Okay, you should follow me everywhere, and you can join my subscriptions for more info. As I said, I definitely will be I've been working with clients for over 20 years now, 21 years now, helping people get their body back together and in homeostasis. So if you are somebody who has health problems and you are interested in using cannabis, or exploring using cannabis to treat it, if you're on certain medications already and you don't want to use these medications and you would like to use cannabis, any of those things, you can definitely reach out to me. I can help you. I will be offering a number of services I'll be offering a number of services in that realm, and I'll be getting it together soon on my site. But in the meantime, if you have questions about it, my services, you can feel free to email me. You can hit me on Instagram, or you can email me directly at thebodyscientist81@gmail. thebodyscientist81@gmail.com. So if you're interested in health consultations, coaching, any of that, definitely feel free to email me there. Okay. And we can discuss options. So for now, if you like this video, please like it, please share it. Okay. I'm going to be doing a lot more YouTube videos, so stay tuned. If there are things you'd like me to talk about, please ask, and either I'll do it here or I'll do it on my subscriptions. And thank you for listening. And I'm so happy I graduated. Now I have time to like translate and bring you guys a lot. So anyhow, thank you for listening and have a good day. Okay, bye.